So the next thing is you've had lots of experience with me across the semester, and I want you to rate me on just one particular personality trait, which is extroversion. So you don't have to rate the other ones. I don't need to know how neurotic you think I am, but not openness to experience, not conscientious, not agreeableness. I want to know on a 0 to 100 scale, so 0 being low and 100 being high, where do you think my extroversion score is? So just a reminder, high extroversion scores means you're outgoing, you like to meet new people, you have a very diffuse network, you're confident, and you're very energetic. Whereas low in extroversion means that you're an introvert, you're a wallflower, you have a very small group of friends, you're less confident, you're less energetic. Where would you rate me on a 0 to 100 scale? Take a second. You don't have to use a piece of paper. You can just do it on your notes, or you can just do it in your head. Pause this to do that. So, if I had to guess, I would say you probably gave me somewhere between like a 75 to an 85. That's pretty typical. If you were to look at my ratings, you'd probably be surprised that it's a 55. But in fact, actually, there is something about the environment you see me in. The reason that we often talk about that is the what's called the person situation debate, right? So the person situation debate really argues what's more important, your personality at determining your behavior in a situation or the situation you find yourself in. So think about why your ratings of my personality, like my extroversion score, might be inaccurate. They could include things like that my job requires me to be outgoing, that you see me in a social setting where I have to talk to you all day. You don't often see me in other environments. You don't see me outside the classroom. You don't see me in my office. You don't see me with friends that I'm closer with. Right? How much of my personality is because of the situation that I'm in, the expectations of the job, right? But it could also be, right, that you could say, well, but I've seen you in comparison to other professors. So maybe in comparison to other professors, I'm more outgoing. So that might be why you give me a higher rating. And all those things are true, right? And there are lots of examples of where, in fact, your behavior might be shaped by the situation you find yourself in. You could be a really good student. And one of the things we found in the 1960s was that when you look at people's behavior in situations, that in fact, even though they might be a really good student and really organized and have certain ways that they define their behavior, maybe they have really good notes, then in fact they get in their car and they go home to a place that's an absolute mess. And so, how much of that, of their organization in school, is because of the situation, right? They're supposed to be organized. Maybe they're very organized at work, but maybe at home they can be different, right? They don't have to have the same sort of situational characteristics driving their behavior. In fact, research in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s has shown, in fact, that the correlation between your personality and your behavior is not really strong. It's 0.20 or 0.30. That often it's not just your personality that predicts your behavior, but that makes sense. We wouldn't expect your personality to be the only thing that drove your behavior. Part of it is always driven by the situation, and it's probably really a combination of the situation and your personality that determines how you act. So people that are more extroverted might be a little bit more talkative at work, might be a little bit more talkative when they're out at parties. People that are less extroverted, that are more introverted, might be a little bit quieter, a little bit more likely to keep to themselves in new situations in particular. People that are high in agreeableness may be really friendly and really warm and really compassionate in certain situations, especially if they're working at a job that requires them to do that. But maybe by the time they go home, they don't want to be like that because they have to do that all day at work. Or maybe they're really compassionate at home, but in fact, when they get to work, they don't have the energy to put into that, or maybe their job doesn't allow them to do that. So in fact, there's a lot of reasons why people's behavior might be different than would be predicted by their personality alone. In the 1980s, a group of researchers actually did an experiment to look at the relationship between and try to resolve the person situation debate. So on your notepad, you're going to rate these following situations by how stressful these are. So 5 is the worst, 1 is not really stressful at all. Forgetting a pencil, dropping your food on the ground when you're heading to class, going on a blind date your friend set you up with, getting in a major fight with a good friend, getting an F on an exam, or getting a speeding ticket. Rate each of these, pause the video, rate each of these on a 1 to 5 scale, again, 1 being not stressful at all, 5 being the most stressful. So the other thing these researchers did is they divided up students into two groups. One is students that were high in neuroticism, and the other is group students that were low in neuroticism. They found, as you might predict, that students that were low in neuroticism tended to rate these events as being less stressful overall, so they gave lower scores. Students that are high in neuroticism, right, tended to give these events higher scores, right? They thought all these were more stressful. Even forgetting their pencil was terrible, right? It was like crap, like this is the one thing I needed, and right, maybe they were more neurotic, more worried, more nervous about not having it. But then in general, some of these were worse than others, right? A fight with a friend, an F on an exam, or a speeding ticket maybe are more stressful, whereas forgetting a pencil or dropping your food on the ground is less stressful. So that both the person and the situation actually matter in determining how you're going to respond to a situation. We also know that in fact our personality is shaped by both our culture and society, our family life, and by the biology that we inherit from our parents because of genes or early life experiences. For example, we know, in fact, that students in Hong Kong tend to be lower in extroversion than American students, but higher in conscientiousness, really shaped by their collectivistic culture. They're much more dependable, they're much more dutiful, because that's what a collectivistic culture tells you, but they're also a little bit less extroverted. They're more introverted. They keep to themselves. They're not as loud, not as energetic as you see with American students. We also know, in fact, that birth order matters, that in fact firstborns tend to be lower in openness to experience. The other personality traits, we do not see a reliable difference, right? The only trait we've really seen is that firstborn children tend to be lower in openness to experience. Lastborn children tend to be higher in openness to experience. Lastly, that in fact introverts tend to have an easily overstimulated nervous system, so people that are low in extroversion tend to avoid stimulated environments, things with loud noises, intense smells, lots of activity. Introverts, again, people with low extroversion, tend to not like those kinds of environments, so they may avoid some of those things. But now again, you may be an introvert, and again, each of these personality traits just pushes you a little bit. It doesn't shape your behavior, it doesn't determine your behavior, it's a nudge in a particular direction. So you could be an introvert that really loves powerful, strong smelling food with lots of flavors, absolutely okay. But in fact, what we see overall when we look at them is that extroverts tend to be more likely to like lots of activity. They want to go shopping, they want to be in these large crowds, whereas introverts tend to want to avoid that because their nervous system gets overstimulated. We also know, though, that your personality shapes the way you behave in situations. So, in fact, a few examples of this: people that are low in conscientiousness tend to be more likely to engage in binge drinking, more likely to have tried marijuanas and cigarettes. People that are high in neuroticism tend to show greater alcohol use over their lifetime. People that have both high neuroticism and high conscientiousness have better grades. That makes sense, right? People with high neuroticism worry a lot, so they're worrying about grades, but they're also high in conscientiousness, so they're highly organized. You can imagine somebody that's high in neuroticism but low in conscientiousness, they're going to freak out, right? They don't know what to do. So they're going to run around like a chicken going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I'm going to fail. But in fact, when you combine high neuroticism with high conscientiousness, they tend to do better. Lastly, we see, in fact, that people that uh, have greater relationship satisfaction if their partner is low in neuroticism. People that are higher in openness to experience tend to have artistic careers, or they bring art into their career that they have. People that are high in neuroticism tend to have higher job dissatisfaction, and people that are high in conscientiousness tend to be more diligent at their jobs. Hopefully that gives you a sense about the things that shape your personality and how the situation also shapes your behavior in those situations. Hopefully, if you have any questions, just send me an email.